Shopify Plus, the enterprise commerce platform from Shopify, empowers leading fashion and apparel brands like Allbirds, Marchesa, and Rebecca Minkoff, among others, to focus on building their businesses while Shopify Plus takes care of the rest.
Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome back to BOF Live. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm delighted to be joined today by Shimona Mehta, the head of EMEA at Shopify Plus, which is the B2B arm of Shopify, one of the pandemic's big winners. Its revenue during the first quarter of 2020 is up 47% compared to the year before, and its share price has tripled in March, making it Canada's most valuable company with a market capitalization of 118 billion, more than Target and eBay combined. So, Shimona, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
I'm also delighted to be joined by Lynda Berkowitz. Lynda is a beauty industry veteran and chief executive of Ilia Beauty. From 2009 to 2014, Berkowitz was president of Too Faced, which received private investment in 2012. And just 2 years later, General Atlantic acquired a majority stake in the company, valuing it at 500 million. In 2016, when Estee Lauder Companies acquired it, it was valued at 1.45 billion. Thank you, Lynda, for joining us today.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So after those incredibly impressive CVs, thank you both for being willing to share your insight today. Today, we're going to be discussing how brands can use e-commerce to create lasting customer relationships. Since the outbreak of COVID-19, e-commerce is growing at what conservative commentators now say is double the pre-pandemic speed. And this period has really given retailers the push to invest in digitization. McKinsey & Company have reported that over 60% of global consumers have changed their shopping behavior, and WorldPay, which processes 31 million financial transactions a day, says that that figure is closer to 90% from their perspective. However, although there is clearly this big boom in e-commerce going on, a number of commentators are arguing that this is a finite opportunity for brands to acquire customers as new demographics are used online to connect to brands in ways that they haven't been doing so before. So how can brands use e-commerce to create lasting customer relationships? What's certain is gone are the days of easy returns on paid marketing, and a new strategy is required to really make that connection with customers effective. I want to start with you and just ask, from the bird's eye view that Shopify Plus and Shopify have on, hundreds of thousands of retailers, what would you say are the best practices, or is there an individual brand that you can identify that really encapsulates this idea that not only are paths to purchase starting in very many innovative new ways, but that path itself is also being evolved and innovated to be more effective in engaging consumers?
Yeah, it's a great question, Robin. And we're seeing a lot of really fast innovation over the last 6 months through COVID. You've got maybe digitally native brands that were already headed down this path and were thinking a lot about storytelling and engaging their consumers through the entire path to purchase. And then you've got those that are starting to catch up a little bit. And it's really great to see that they're remaining nimble in this time and they're experimenting. But when you take a look at, some really great brands who are, one, focusing more and more on storytelling in order to engage their consumers. We have all been sitting at home for 6 months now, and that means we as consumers have nothing but time but to sit here and start to research and engage with and talk to the brands that we're really interested in. And what we found is that consumers are really looking to engage with brands and purchase from brands that they connect with, whether it's in values or story of some kind. And so first and foremost, it's the shift to storytelling and talking about your brand and with authenticity, who you are, what you're about, in a way that hopefully connects with your core customers from a values perspective. And then when you bring them into your fold and you bring them into your doors, to ensure that you're engaging and continue to tell that story through the path to purchase, whether it's educating them about the products themselves, and I'm sure Lynda can talk a little bit about that, whether it's talking about, your sustainability practices and, where some of the products are sourced from, or it's, surfacing content from your community to help engage, people with the products, and educate them, especially if they're high-end luxury products or expensive, core products like really expensive office chairs. Good American actually is a really great example of a brand that's built tremendous community over the last few years through the Good Squad, and they scream, body positivity and normalizing, bodies of all sizes and celebrating them, and we see that through the path to purchase as well, right? You can select a model that you most resonate with, just take a look at how that product's gonna take a look on you. And it really makes you feel more at home with that brand, like you belong with that brand. You've seen them extend their sizing, right? They've now added that in that size 15, again, normalizing bodies of all sizes and celebrating them through that path to purchase. Again, create that connectivity, know that you can see yourself in and with that product, feel like you belong with that brand, has really accelerated not just checkouts and conversion, but also loyalty and repeat customers.
Lynda, turning to you, when we think about the path to purchase being innovated through storytelling, a big part of that storytelling or a prerequisite for that storytelling is having the content in order to share that story. And now, as a beauty brand, beauty is, I would say, arguably more successful at user-generated content than the fashion industry typically is. But before we talk about user-generated content, I actually wanted to talk to you about the campaign that you just launched, and that clearly, you invest as CEO, you signed off on quite significant investment. Can you tell me about your motivation for that investment, but in the context of what's happening to your business now?
Right. So my partner is the founder of the brand, Sasha Plavsic, and she started Ilia in 2011. And I think over the past 10 years, the brand has transitioned from organic, natural, to something that today people are calling clean, which is not a regulated category or a regulated term. And what we've had to do is really communicate to our customer and the general public what clean is and what it is to us, not what it is to the world, but what it is to us. And I think that over the past year, as our business has really started to grow, and it was a slow build. I mean, you said slow build earlier. This has been, almost 10 years, with a huge focus on the past 18 months. We found that our customers knew our products, or a lot of people knew our products, but they didn't know our brand. If you held up a bottle, they'd know exactly what the product is, but know nothing about us. So for us, we needed to take a step back and make an investment in the brand and the storytelling around the brand. This has been like a profoundly painful year. We're talking about business right now, but, COVID has had an incredible impact on everyone globally. And then here in the US, well, not here just in the US, but I think it pretty much started here in the US, in June, with Black Lives Matter. That's also been just an incredibly enlightening experience. And for us, we did a campaign that was authentic to us and real and pretty raw, if you've seen it. And it's about the space between us right now, whether it's you being in London and me being here in sunny California, or, my sons being in New York and Massachusetts, and me being in California and not being able to see them, not being able to see your mom. It's all of those very emotional pieces. So for us, it was the perfect opportunity to talk about, visually talk about, by the way, what's between us right now, whether it's space or race or, distance. And it's just an amazing time to be able to communicate our own stories. So that's what you see. The name of the campaign is Between Us. And it's real people. They're not models. They range in ages from 18 to, I think, 80. And it's real. There's moms and daughters and sisters and friends and partners, and just talks about all those special little things that are between us that we miss right now. So,
when you were considering the brand, and as we've all acknowledged already, this idea that brands have moved beyond sort of aspirational transactions. We're not prompting immediate desire. This is a long-term relationship, a dialogue between brand and consumer. Although Ilia is a decade old, or almost a decade old, and you had hero products, very successful products that people knew by name or knew by appearance, how did you approach really crystallizing what your brand was in order to then be able to go out with this new campaign material in light of the social justice movements that we see around the world? It is more than clean beauty now. And, that's a challenging thing to do with authenticity.
Hard, right? I mean, I think a few things. I think that there are different kinds of founders, right? Or different kinds of brands. There are brands that fill an incredible white space in the industry, and there are brands that are a reflection of the founder's point of view. And I don't know that we always look at it that way, but Ilia is very much a brand that's built on the way Sasha wears makeup, the way aesthetically she sees the world from a design point of view, because she's very design driven. And that extends to her heart and the things she believes in and the charities that she wants to support. And then from my point of view, I have to backfill employees that also feel the same way as her in order to remain authentic, because as you grow, it's not just one person dishing out things that they believe in. So I think that as this year has transpired, and every day is something new, we take a look at our community who, as you build your community and they support you as a brand, ultimately, the vast majority of them feel very similarly to you or the brand, which is, in our case, a reflection of Sasha. They want that commitment from us. Whether we want them to or not, they hold us accountable to those core values that we speak about. And when Black Lives Matter kind of happened, and it's not like it only happened in June. I mean, this has been an ongoing thing, but this is, also the year where kind of the rubber hits the road and people have to be accountable. Sasha's not even American. So we actually had to educate her in what that means here in the US. And we just took a hard look in the mirror, stripped everything away and what can we do better? What can we do better? The first thing we did was brought in people from outside that knew nothing about us as a brand and could give us that objectivity as we're looking in the mirror. And we did find some things that we could do better. And that's, the Between Us campaign had already started. But this was a way for us to continue that storytelling. So you had mentioned before that it's a long-term commitment. So first we talk about Between Us and we continue to weave that story throughout the balance of the year. But one of the things that hard look in the mirror caused us to do was take a look at our shade extensions or our shades as a whole. And do we have a shade that works for me, and for you, Robin, and for you, Shimona? Do we have everything? And we did have some gaps. We're missing the fairest of skin, the deepest of skin, olive undertones. So Between Us turns into the shades between us, and that will launch in early 2021. And we'll continue that rolling narrative to be accountable for what we believe in and not just believe in it. And I have no idea if that just answered your question.
It did.
It's great.
Before, I want to pick up on the shades between us and how you might launch that in 2021.
Sasha will kill me for talking about that right now because It's kind of a secret. So hopefully we have a very small audience.
We
today.
don't, but
And hopefully she's not watching.
Yeah.
No, she's never up this hour.
Shimona, Shopify's clients, one thing that is clearly new in these storytelling driven path to purchase is where that story begins. And a big new element to this, certainly for the fashion industry, but as I mentioned earlier, Lynda, for the beauty industry for a longer period of time, is user generated content, and not simply influencer seeding. Right. Really understanding how your community can be the best advocates for your brand, and what that dialogue represents. And I wondered if you could share some of the best practices you've seen from Gymshark, which, when we were chatting prior to the call starting, we both believe is a particularly strong fashion company for user generated content.
Yeah, they're such a phenomenal example of having a story, building a community, and having a rabidly loyal community base as well, in ensuring that they shine a spotlight on their community, and have done so, right through, but this is before COVID, but they've really kind of put the metal to the pedal through COVID as well, and knew like that was where they wanted to focus, and also very strongly believe and understand that their community is precious to them, and so they're not going to pander to everyone. So they stand for certain things, and they're very authentic and human, and they're okay with talking about what they believe in, because they want to connect deeply with that community. But when we talk about user-generated content specifically, we saw through COVID, obviously gyms being fully shut down, right. And what did Gymshark turn around and do? They actually started to bring on board personal trainers and have them generate content and workouts that, would take over their social streams on Instagram to share those at-home workouts for people to use. What does that do? One, it's inspiring a community of health-focused individuals who love Gymshark, but it's also providing some work for those, personal trainers who, without that, are maybe at home without any form of income, and in many cases not able to even be furloughed, because they're all, independent consultants. The other was, again, focused on health and focused on their community and their homes in, Birmingham and in the UK, showing appreciation for those NHS workers, all the healthcare workers over here, through a sweaty selfie campaign. Right. So, take a picture of yourself post-workout sweaty, and we'll donate some money to the NHS for every single sweaty selfie that you post. Right. So let's be healthy together. Let's be engaged together, and let's love and support our healthcare workers, through this together, who are in this and taking care of us. So it's and then as we got through Black Lives Matter, we can touch on that a little bit as well. They really took a stand on what they believe in and who they are. And if I could be a little crass to say, like, either you're okay with us shining a spotlight on, the Black fitness industry, Black male and female fitness models and trainers, and we're going to highlight those businesses in the UK, and you're either okay with that and on board and you love Gymshark for it, or fuck you don't really need to buy from us.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It really is. You have to find that line that makes you feel good as a brand founder, and you can't make everyone happy, right?
Oh, you absolutely can't. Lynda, what you said before I thought was perfect, right? Like, I think consumers are just looking for us to be human and authentic, right? And not to try and please everybody. Let's be who we are, which I think that Ilia is doing really well.
And you have to be, it has to be real authenticity too. And as people, not everything's going to fit. Not every single thing is going to fit. And it's not about getting more followers, and it's not about getting more likes. It's about building that long-term commitment. I mean, for us, real, authentic, user-generated content is the only thing that converts. And it's funny, we're talking a lot about storytelling and brand building, but I really care about converting. And, for me, when I take a look at at what works and what converts. We've learned so much. You know, our customer is Gen Z, she's millennial, but I will tell you that our number one most converting piece, you know, of UGC, and that has turned into a paid ad, is this gorgeous 57-year-old woman with silver hair. Her name is White Haired Wisdom on Instagram. And our business that month changed, not just in how it converted, but what we learned. Nobody's talking to that woman. Nobody's talking to anybody in their 50s. And the responses and the comments, and we read every single comment. We try to reply to every single comment, which has changed dramatically just based on the number of hands. But, you know, thank you so much nobody markets to me. You know, I've never seen makeup marketed to a 55-year-old woman. And, you know, so our customer, we learned, it's such a valuable lesson that who you think your customer isn't always who your customer is. And we've taken that and we have a direct loop for UGC. We look at what works. We look at what works in real time. You know, we convert that back to our creative team who can iterate it into something that will continue to work. And we work on content every single day. It's actually one of the fastest growing categories within our department. And we take all that information and we spin it right around. We re-edit it, we find new faces, we go back to our followers and we find people that represent us in a way that our customers want to see. UGC is nothing but a visual review. It's people want to buy from other people. You know, they don't want to read copy. And it's a visual review when you have people on there talking about your products. We haven't done a lot of paid UGC either. That's why it's really authentic.
The other side of, you know, UGC and, you know, the learnings you can take from successful members of your community, really, you know, right, advocating for your brand, super positive, all very, very beneficial. But there is another side to that coin. And I actually want to quote Emma Grede, who sadly couldn't join us today because she was unexpectedly taken ill. But we wish her well, and I'm sure she'll be back on her feet very soon. But she said, she says, the vocal nature of many DTC brand customers, or indeed any brand customers, I would argue now, creates a new culture of accountability. If you ask for customers for feedback, my God, you're going to get it, good, bad, and ugly. And you alluded to this slightly earlier, Lynda, but how are you using some of that feedback that is perhaps less positive to inform future growth strategies? And how do you use learnings that can't convert into content creation and yet still use them to convert into future growth? And Shimona, please do chime in with any thoughts you have on this.
You have to be able to separate valuable feedback from like cancel culture, because there's a lot of that, and we're human and we read that and we're like, ugh, it hurts, you know, and then you're like, wait a minute, that's unfair, or that's untrue, or that's lopsided. You know, you have to. So I would say for us, we needed to slow down a little bit and get real, and talk to all of our customers, all of our followers, all of our community about it. So first, I would say you have to be able to separate. It's easy to be mean behind, an iPhone, and that's hard for companies to bear. So that's why we went for objectivity, like I mentioned before. So we brought in 3 pro artists because so much of it was about our shade inclusivity, because we are a brand for everyone. And we brought in 3 pro artists, 2 very successful Black makeup artists, pro makeup artists, and 1 Russian, and had them go through all of our complexion products. And we are a complexion heavy brand. Half of our business is about the skin. We're a skin centric makeup brand. So getting that right is really important. And they, they recognize the holes. As a company, we reviewed everything, what we could do, the cost associated behind doing it, because that's a big piece of it, making that investment. But if you're staying true to yourself, you have to, it's not optional, and from an authenticity point of view. So, there's a point in time from a product development point of view. It takes, at least 12 months to bring those things to life, which is why it's happening next year. I would say that for us, all of that feedback has afforded us, honestly, the ability to look at our brand through crystal clear eyes and make some positive changes, and then financially find a way to make them work in a timeline that's responsible. It's not always possible though for new brands, and that's something that the communities never understand, is the cost associated with, whether you're launching a jeans line and you want to go from size 0 to size 24 and how hard that is, or whether you're introducing a concealer and that's 30 shades, like the expenses associated with it. So early on, we were very selective. We still wanted to reach a broad, ethnicity, but not everyone. And actually we'll be at 30 shades next year, and that won't be everyone. And I think Fenty is at 42 or 47, and that's not everyone. So you do the best you can, again, and then stay true to yourself.
I think the key there is, you started with it, Lynda, which is, not all feedback is meant to be actioned, right. But it should be, it should be taken, you should definitely take it seriously.
Listen to it, yeah.
You got to listen to it. You got to see though, which feedback actually appeals to your values and maybe is an indicator that you're falling short on a brand promise or story, and which is maybe just is not for you, and it's okay to push it to the side, right? And you're talking about, inclusivity. So yes, maybe there's more transparency to be had on what it takes to actually launch from 30 shades to, 42 shades and so on and so forth. It's often just telling the story behind your journey to get from where you are today to where you're going to continue to fulfill your brand promise or your brand aspirations, right? Mm-hmm. We learned from Google, actually, 55% of people are willing to try new brands right now. Mm-hmm. And in a way, when they're purpose driven is actually when they're most apt to try new ones. And so as people learn about those purposes, they're also going to work to hold people accountable to that purpose that the brands and the stories are telling, because they really want to know. There's a lot of inauthenticity out there, right? People fronting. And so that what they're going to do is they're going to dig, and they want to know and understand what you're doing. Cotton actually is a really great brand that's doing great things here with sustainability. And they do a great job of telling the story of the path of every thread that goes into their clothing, right from the farms in Egypt where, the cotton is grown and all the way through. And now they're extending that as well. If you take a look at what they're looking at doing for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, they're not holding, some mass sale and just price cutting. Again, they're staying true and authentic to their brand. And what they're doing instead, they're going to be donating proceeds back to those farms in Egypt. So now if you connect with them and that story and that brand, they're also even driving, boosting through Black Friday, Cyber Monday, again, by extending what it means to connect to that brand and allowing people to participate in the purpose of that brand.
One of the things, oops, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Lynda, you go. No,
I was just going to tag on to the feedback. And one of the things that we did, because in clean beauty, there's so much confusion around ingredients and lots of negativity. And we decided just straight on, we developed a blog post called Let's Talk About It. And every month we'll do a Let's Talk About It post. And like the first one was Let's Talk About Phenoxyethanol, which to you guys probably doesn't mean anything, but to the clean beauty industry, it's one of those taboo ingredients, and it's called toxic and taboo, and we just put it all out there, all the data, the way Sasha feels about it as an ingredient, and the engagement was higher than we've ever had. And every single Let's Talk About post, which is dimethicone or silicones or product development, timelines, has engaged the most. And when you're asking people for very specific feedback, the cancel culture isn't necessarily part of that, because they realize how real it is. And the information and the knowledge that you gain from your followers and community when you get right out there in the thick of things and talk to them is amazing.
I love that, and it leads very naturally to the next stage along the sort of path to purchase, the next part of the e-commerce journey that we're discussing, and really this is about sort of shepherding the consumer through to conversion, through education or entertainment. And there's been a huge shift in how willing brands are to connect to consumers in previously unimaginable ways. Shimona, we were talking about Herman Miller and how they'd moved that very crucial moment of consumer education around the capabilities of their product online as a result of the shift online. I wondered if you could go into more detail and just how important that sort of expert insight is at crucial times.
Yeah, actually, I'll share a little bit about them as well as a fine jewelry example that I love from COVID. Yet, when we take a look at high ticket items, right, that people need to take time to invest in, like a really expensive office chair, right, where there's so much to it, and it truly is an investment, especially when we're all going to be working at home moving forward. The health of our back becomes so much more important in our posture. When you are able to go in person into a store, you spend time, taking a look and trying out the product, and you can talk to experts there about all of the different ways to adjust and to understand what's going to work for you, and probably have someone help you to customize that to yourself. When you lose that in-person ability, through COVID, we're at home trying to learn and educate ourselves about products like this. Brands really need to start to figure out how they're going to actually insert education into that path to purchase, right? What is the first thing most of us do when it's a really expensive product? I actually do this with skincare too, Lynda, right? I'm looking at a really expensive serum online, I flip right over to Google, and now I start Googling reviews, right? Or I start Googling those ingredients and what they're actually going to do for me or not. And it's going to be the same. You're on a site trying to pick between some chairs. And so what we've started to see is for high ticket items, why not have a chat pop up with someone live ready to ask you, how can I help you with this product? What are the things you're thinking about? Talk to me about posture. Tell me about how often you sit, right? So you really start to engage and understand personally whether this product is a fit for you or not, and instead of leaving, actually engaging with the brand right there who wants to talk to you about that. Another really great creative example, that's in the spot education with things like office chairs, but there's a great fine jewelry brand in Ireland called Chupi, and they do a lot in engagement rings. And if anyone has been a part of an engagement ring purchase, that takes time, and you go in and you're personally looking at pieces, and you're being educated about the quality of the diamond, and what kind of woman might want a certain type of ring, and that can be an intimidating purchase process, right? So what Chupi started to do was actually create digital appointments, so that they could actually connect with someone who was getting ready to propose and be able to talk to them about how they might go about selecting a ring, the quality, the craft, the kind of design, and take away some of that education process to themselves, and actually, connect them to an expert and do that. And that was something they implemented right away through COVID, and has been really great for them. Life doesn't stop. Proposals don't stop through COVID. No. So they needed to find a way to really connect with and engage and put people at ease.
Lynda, something that struck me as, truly ambitious about Ilia's approach to this connected consumer strategy, to creating opportunities to learn from customers themselves about, the application of your product into their lives, and hopefully collect that data potentially, or collect the quantitative or qualitative, whatever it may be, and that be able to inform further decisions. But you actually launched a customer service team that allows people to connect with your team at any time from anywhere, including, as we mentioned before, stores that aren't Ilia stores, but potentially. Can you tell me about some of that rollout and the benefits?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. We were talking beforehand that we're in a unique place. We've been a wholesale first company, and our website has grown dramatically this year, which gives us, there's so many positives about having an incredibly strong web and wholesale business. And right now they're both performing very well, but we weren't prepared, to have the support necessary to really drive our own website. And to us, we needed to create a point of difference between us and our number one customer, which is Sephora. And we love Sephora. They're our heart and soul, but they don't tell our brand story. We own our brand story, and we needed to create that point of difference. And the most obvious way to do it was with education and service. So the customer service strategy was really important. As a small brand, the most valuable skill you can have is to recognize your strengths and your weaknesses. And when you find a weakness, bring in someone who can really help guide you. And we found an amazing company that just worked with us to build out exactly what we wanted. And we wanted that customer experience to be quick and easy. Obviously, we're about a 5-minute face, so we certainly don't want you to have to spend an hour finding the products for that 5-minute face. But we wanted that customer to be educated. And that's very much about our web design and our web content. Staying true to who we are, we wanted that connection. So we started with shade finders on our website, and because it's a little bit overwhelming for anyone to go on and say the first thing you do is say, what shade am I? So we built quizzes that would help people walk them through, determining their best shade. And we found that the conversion was 75%. If they're investing in the quiz and they're taking the 2 minutes to do it, 75% of them convert. So obviously we'll want to drive people to those quizzes. That's an easy one. But you're still missing that human connection. So that's where we really started to explode with live chat. We're getting so many emails, and we do live chat right through Shopify, which is easy. We hired an entire team. They're all makeup artists. They've all been trained. They can do makeup, right there with people on the phone. Through the computer live chatting. We also do video chat with them. From a technology point of view, we're still trying to find the right company that will allow us to do video wherever, whenever, without any hiccups, because it is a little bit challenging. But when we talk to someone, we have a similar return conversion when we're chatting with them live. So that's our primary goal, first and foremost, is to make that connection when they're on our website. And that's what's building loyalty. It takes a little bit of time, but it's worth it. And the feedback that we get, so many of the comments that we get are about our amazing customer service, and we'll continue to try to evolve that. We've been pretty nimble in being able to build out and start executing inside, the past 5 months, but there's miles to go, miles.
Shimona, is there anything that you wanted to add, just in terms of maybe potentially some of Shopify's merchant partners really having successful strategies at taking those high touch interactions and enabling, and those interactions informing their future growth strategies? Lynda is obviously at the beginning of that journey, and so you're still taking that first big haul of data or of qualitative feedback back. But Shimona, I wondered if there's give us the answers.
So there's what we're starting to see happen, right, is like as you start to engage with customers and educate them through those conversations and through that path to purchase, you start to see some really great wins that you can have through how you merchandise the product and surface it for people. Actually, I was going to say, Lynda, I think you're doing a phenomenal job with the photography on your site with, you scrolling over and all of a sudden you scroll from product to video or product to like the texture of the product, which people are really looking for. So again, it's creating that connectivity to it. We've seen brands really start to, particularly in fashion, actually, the ones that are starting to incorporate video into their merchandising. There's another way to educate and connect with your customer, because now you're actually getting a sense of texture and movement and how it's going to fall on you, which is so important, right, in the fashion world. Or we've seen with purses and some products, sizing becomes so important. So photography and placement next to, everyday type of items, so you can take a look at, how this is going to look, what the sizing is like, or on models holding it, has become more and more important, and moving away from just, static photography and measurements, which we all know does nothing for any of us to envision that product on us. The other is, again, through watching your conversion, is to start to surface collections together. Spongelay, I'm actually going to read a couple of things here. Spongelay has actually done a really great job of this, where they're placing popular items together on the home page that are frequently bought together, or on product pages they're surfacing things that should be bought together, and they're surfacing the most popular items from individual collections on their collections pages and surfacing them up top. And with that, they've achieved 3x increase in conversions. They've increased 21% in average order value, and they're driving 57% of their revenue through personalization, right? So just learning what's happening and the habits that you're creating and how people are connecting with your brand, and then using that to start to adjust the way that you're surfacing products and merchandising them, has really helped to increase their conversion as well.
Mm-hmm.
Shimona, just before we move on, could you spell the name of that brand? One of our community members has asked. Sorry, I didn't
Sure.
catch it myself, or I would try myself.
Yeah, for sure. They're eco-friendly self-care products. It's Spongelay, Spongelle with an accent.
Look at that, educational success.
There you go.
You mentioned, Shimona, talking about how clothes fall on you, and we're sadly running out of time. So just maybe for the last few minutes where we can chat, maybe we can talk about some of the technologies that excite both of you. AR and VR have huge potential application in beauty. The potential applications in fashion are growing and growing, especially when we think, and another member of our community wanted to raise just the difference for luxury brands in building these communities, given that transactions are so far fewer between. They're often made in store, and it's more of a holistic view. But as brands are now looking at ways to really distinguish their content online, to really pull consumers into the conversion journey through technology, through digital connections, what excites you about a world of AR and VR and everything in between?
I think it's the possibilities of, again, creating engagement, not just with the brand, but with those products. We're in particularly right now, where we're forced into having to recreate that in-person ability to touch, feel, connect with the products online. I think the first thing to know and to understand is, like, we don't want to use technology for technology's sake. That's not what consumers are looking for. You don't need AR, VR for every last thing, but where it makes sense, like AR, VR potentially for furniture and being able to see it placed into your home is a really great example, or potentially for shoes, to be able to look at every beautiful, angle of a new shoe is really great. But you don't necessarily need it for jewelry, because all you really need potentially is some video for something like jewelry, just to watch how light bounces off a beautiful piece. So I think the possibilities of technology, whether it's AR, VR, whether it's video, whether it's 3D, is the ability to think about what are those most important engagements that you've created with those products in store, and how can you now leverage that to try and recreate some of that connection to a product in a digital way, without overkilling it, though. I think you're trying to use technology to recreate, not just to use cool technology.
Mm-hmm.
Lynda, is there anything that you think that is going to be particularly persuasive in the future as beauty? I mean, beauty has its own journey into these AR and VR worlds.
I mean, I think for us, it's, we're not in beauty in general, yes, I think that there's tremendous value to being able to upload your photo and see what a color might look like on you. I think there's, especially where people, even if when stores are open and they go in, they still can't try product on. So I do think that there's value for sure in that way. But I believe that there's a lot of opportunity still with video. And you know, I look at my own shopping patterns, and when I shop online, I actually, if it's a static photo, I don't even look. I want to see the fabric moving. I want to see the texture of the fabric up close, and you don't see a lot of that in, like, you have to zoom in, but that's different than getting that tight shot of the actual fabric so that you can almost feel it. And that's what we do in cosmetics, right? We do shots, texture shots that are so sensorial, if you will, that you can imagine what it feels like. And I want to see that in fashion too, especially with fabric, because that's like the guts of fashion. It's like, that's the material, that's what you want. So I would agree with you. It's not just technology for technology's sake, but very specifically looking at the industry. And video is not wildly expensive, and neither are really tight shot, you know, so
it's an unusual perspective
that to me
on video.
is like, so for me, I love that. But I just think that it's underused and has great value, so.
Shimona, Lynda, I'm sad to say we have run out of time. We are already 2 minutes over our allotted window.
Oh, wow.
So we're going to have to close the conversations now. But thank you so much for sharing so much insight on building loyalty through, you know, community values and innovating the path to purchase as you have it. I'm sure the community appreciates it, and I certainly do on a personal level. So thank you both so much for spending time with us. And we look forward to seeing you soon.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. It's great talking to you, Robin, and to you as well, Lynda.
Both of you as well. Thank you again. Bye now.
Bye.
Have a lovely day. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Be Of Live will continue this week and next week, and we look forward to seeing you there. Thank you.